You were saying that at A2 you were walking the track and you were watching them fix the up ramp where Levi cartwheeled, and you were just like, what the fuck? Like, I wouldn't hit that right now. Like, that's so sketchy. And then look what ends up happening. Those guys fully don't get a choice.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to make the choice whether I do something or not, and that's why I like filming a lot more than competition right now. But for those guys to just go, I mean, this is when the gate drops. Like, you have no choice. There is so much pressure, and that's why it's so impressive to watch these guys and the level that they perform at. That's the gnarliest thing, in my opinion. Just how fit you have to be able to last through. Like, dude, I couldn't even do a lap.
Yeah.
The fact that they don't have a say in the way the tracks are built is kind of insane.